Hey y'all, this is Amanda and welcome back to my Texas Zone 8A garden. And today we are starting several fall annuals from seed. Now, fall is quickly approaching here in my Zone 8A North Texas area. And when I say fall, like the 2 weeks that we have fall weather. But I'm going to go ahead and start preparing for some fall annuals to include within my garden and in some beautiful containers. So the important thing to think about is, when do you want to have these plants maturing? When do you want them at their best to put out in your garden or to put out in your containers? And then you need to count back from there to figure out how long you have to allow the plants to mature. For example, most of the plants that I've selected here mature within 60 to 85 days, because that would put me beginning of October into mid-October, and that's when I would like to plant up several of my fall containers. Okay, let's talk about a few options. One of my deals I want to do this year is, despite all of my beautiful heirloom chrysanthemums that I have growing in the garden, I'm going to try to create fall containers that do not consist of chrysanthemums. And I know that's a little bit different, but the chrysanthemums tend to be a little one and done, those standard kind of garden style chrysanthemums that you get from your local nursery or something along those lines. And so I want to go a little bit of a different direction, some different texture, and just try to be a little more cost effective about my approach for my fall containers. So I'm going to be starting a wide variety of seeds here. So let's talk about which ones I'm starting. Okay, I am going to start a variety of mustard, kale, and Swiss chard. The reason I'm selecting these is I love the really rich leaf colors and the interesting texture, which I think will be great in fall containers. The first one I'm starting is mustard Japanese giant red. Next is scarlet kale. Next is Swiss chard Vulcan. And finally, Japanese flowering kale. And those are the three kind of I guess kale, ornamental kale, cabbage looking type plants that I'll be having for the containers. Now, for an additional kind of leafy type texture, I'm going to be starting 3 varieties of basil, and these will do double duty. They'll be really great texture within my containers, but I can also use them in the kitchen. The first one is Basil Mammoth. The second one is Spicy Saber. And the third one is Red Reuben. Next, I'm going to be starting Salvia St. John's Fire. I have tried to start this before and it hasn't gone well, but I'm going to give it another try and see if we can't get this guy going. I love that really bright red pop of color. I think it'll look really nice. I'm also going to start the Tip Top Mahogany Nasturtium. I think it'll be beautiful. I'm hoping that these are a little bit more compact plants, but I'm really looking for that rich mahogany brown flower that I think look great in these containers. For a little more pop of color, I am going to start a variety of petite yellow marigolds. I think it'll be nice to tuck into a few areas. And I am going to start some more sweet alyssum Tiny Tim, and this is the white alyssum. And this one was really fun, and I think this will be nice, just a little pop of white for some contrast. I'm also going to be starting some Zanzibar, which is kind of it's kind of known as safflower, and it's a really pretty orange color. It's a little bit more height, 18 to 24 inches, but I think this one will be really cool to have tucked into containers. I'm also going to be starting some cress called Green Dragon, and this is a very unique texture. It's also really great for cut flowers, but I think this will look fabulous tucked into some planters as well. And then finally, because I've never done it before, I am going to start a few crimson clovers, just to kind of see what that looks like. Could it be cool in a container? I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I wanted to start it off. I bought these seeds not long ago, so I thought, yeah, let's give them a try and see what happens. Okay, so basically I'm going to get started. I'm going to get my soil started. I'm going to prep all my seed containers, and then let's get all these planted. Okay, I'm going to start with my fold out kind of potting container. This has worked really great and held up really well throughout the entire season. Okay, next I'm going to use some of my BM7 potting mix, and this is a new favorite of mine. I've been using it for all my containers. I get it from homegrown plants in Farmersville. And I really like how fluffy it is. It's really fluffy. It doesn't really compact. I really have enjoyed it, and it's worked really well for a lot of my seed starting. Okay, I'm going to need 14 plastic containers, and basically I'm just going to be filling them with the loose soil. And yes, I am filling dried. I have found that I really like this process better on filling dry as opposed to filling it wet. And I just make sure that the soil has no clumps in it, run the soil over the top, and then use a couple of fingers to just slightly compress it. Not try to compress it hard, as I do want the soil to have lots of room for movement so that the roots can work their way through. Okay, all filled up. Okay, I am using some Amazon seed starting kits that I absolutely have loved and have worked out really well. If you're interested, they're in my Amazon storefront, which is linked underneath all of my videos. So I filled up the seed tray cell portion, and so now we're going to do the bottom portion of the tray, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm going to add water to the bottom of each of the trays, filling it up about halfway, and then I will put in my seed cell and just allow the water to soak up. Okay, and you can probably tell from looking at the seed trays the soil is much darker because it's soaking up the water. It all happens very quickly. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start with my basil and just go ahead and get that knocked out. We'll start with the spicy saber. They're all planted about the same way, 1/4 of an inch below the surface, so not much at all. And so basically what I'm going to do, sorry, I'm looking for my tools real quick. I've got my little dauber, and I'm just going to make a very slight hole, nothing crazy, about 1/4 of an inch deep, and I'm going to drop 2 seeds of each one in here. And then I'll just use the dauber to just lightly cover them. And the basil will go on a heat mat. And let me grab one of my covers. And so I just put the dome on just like that, easy peasy, and this will go on a heat mat to get started. So let's go ahead and knock out the rest of the basil. Okay, next I'm going to knock out the 2 varieties of kale, the scarlet kale and the Japanese flowering kale. And these both are planted at 1/4 of an inch deep. So I'm going to use the same method that I just did on the basil. Okay, next let's knock out the Swiss chard Vulcan. And these are about 1/2 an inch deep, so I'm going to go a little bit deeper with my seed dauber, soil dauber. I don't know what this is called, but it's great for making little holes. These are very cool looking seeds. And these Swiss chard take a lot longer to sprout, about 14 to 21 days. So since they're 1/2 an inch deep, they definitely don't need light for germination. Next is the mustard, Japanese giant red, and this is only 1/4 of an inch deep. And I grew this Japanese giant red last year, this mustard, and it did really well until it got eaten up by some kind of insect. Okay, the next variety we're going to do is nasturtium, and this is half that tip top, 1/2 inch to 1 inch deep. So I'm going to use my dauber. And nasturtium has very large seeds. I'm only going to do 1 in each of these. I wonder if soaking these nasturtium seeds ahead of time would be worth it. You'll let me know for future reference if you've done that, because these are really large seeds. Okay, next is the marigold, and it is 1/4 of an inch deep. Okay, and the alyssum is surface sow. So I'm just going to take and sprinkle a little bit. And I'm just going to gently use my finger to press them down into the soil, just to make sure they have good contact. Okay, next I'm going to do the Zanzibar, and it's about 1/4 inch as well. It's just going to be lightly covered. It does recommend direct sow, but I'm not doing that. So we'll give it a try this way. It says you can transplant, but it recommends direct sow. Okay, next I'm going to do the crimson clover, and it definitely says sow in place, y'all. So I'm not doing that, obviously, but what we're going to do is I'm going to give just a press down on the soil lightly, because it does say it wants to be covered with about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch of soil. So I'm going to be sowing multiple seeds per little container. This will be really fun to see what happens. Start exploring clover. I think it'll be really cool. I'm going to take some additional soil and put it across the top. Just like that. And then the last one is the cress green dragon, and it does not say on the floret packages. This is one of the things that drives me nuts about the floret packages, is it doesn't tell you the depth to sow it at. Let me confirm one more time, because maybe it's just me. It says direct sow as soon as ground can be worked. So anyway, I did direct sow some of it last year and enjoyed it, and it did come back for me this next year. So I think that's something that I think cress spreads a little bit or reseeds itself, so it's something to consider. And there we go. Okay, while we have been doing this, I have been dividing this into 2 rows. Over here I have the cress, alyssum, clover, nasturtium, mustard, and Swiss chard do not need heating mats. The other ones, Zanzibar, the marigolds, the kale, and the basil all do need the heating mat. So the first thing I'll do is I'll get them all set up on their heating mat or not on their heating mat. And then something to consider is that once they've all sprouted, you want to turn your heating mat off. You don't want to keep going. And then also, once you have maybe like 65 to 75% of your seed tray sprouted, you want to go ahead and take the dome off so that you do not get issues with fungus or dampening off or things along those lines. All right, I've already got some stuff going on over here. These are all my celosia seeds. They actually need to get out into the garden. And these are Starfire Marigold. They're doing really nice as well. Okay, better late than never. Ideally, I would have started most of these plus some additional ones around the July 4th time. That would have given me an extra 30 days of maturity, which would have been great. I would have a fully mature plant. But it is what it is. I'm going to go for it anyway, give it a try, see what happens, and it'll be really fun updating you all and seeing which of these plants we can utilize in some fall containers. Next, I'm going to be starting all of my violas and pansies, and so that'll be an upcoming video as well. I'll be utilizing most of those for my winter projects. However, violas and pansies take a really long time to come to maturity, so I do need to start them now in order to be able to plant them out in November and December. All right, you all, as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know my latest videos are up, and make sure you check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. As always, she's Mad Gardener or Decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.